Now then, my friends, I hope you're going well. It's Andy here. It's Wednesday the 7th. Hope you have had yourselves a wonderful day, a wonderful Wednesday. As always, my friends, let me know what your scores are. How's your day been out of 10? It's been a frustrating one for me, I'm not going to lie. Had the rings run around me by my 2-year-old son, which is great. Yes, it's difficult when you're working with a kid who's hitting terrible twos quite enthusiastically, but then to be sort of locked in the same place as them the entire time. I think my wife and I, Flick and I, we're I don't know how we've not throttled each other yet. Just we've managed to just about stay sane, but I don't know about anybody else. I don't know if anybody else in Metro Melbourne is sort of. I mean, I know that a lot of agents can get out and about and have appointments and all that sort of stuff, which is really, really good. Lots of enthusiasm. There'll be lots of people still that are sort of in lockdown and whatnot. So, gang, yeah, let us know if anybody is still locked away and how you're getting on and how you're coping and all that sort of jazz. If you're a parent and have had to do some more homeschooling, let us know how you are staying sane through all of that. I've said it once or twice, English to a prep kid is more difficult than doing a mechanical engineering degree. I know both through experience, seriously. So, gang, let us know how you're getting on out of 10. Post your scores, post your success stories for me as well. If you could, that would be amazing. Did get a couple of wins though. I've had some auction action booked in for when we are hopefully, fingers crossed, released and let out into the wild. So that got my blood pumping a little bit, which is all exciting. So yeah, let us know how you're getting on. Anyway, gang, I've got a question come through, and this has actually been a question that I get asked. I reckon I'll probably get asked this question once a week, at least once a week, once or twice a week. And I understand the premise behind it. I understand why so many people ask me this question, but at the same time, it's quite not concerning. But and look, there's so many people that fall into the same sort of issues when it comes to listing presentations. And it makes me wonder, like from a macro point of view, how these things are being taught from the very, very top. We're talking franchise groups, we're talking, institutes, whatever the case may be, because this is something that's going on all over the country. This is what I'm getting asked. How can I, no, it's not what CRM. How can I differentiate myself at a listing presentation? How can I differentiate myself at a listing presentation? It has to be something at a higher level. So, directorship, franchise level, general training sort of concerns. I don't know, because the volume of people of real estate agents that fall into the trap of becoming one of the many, right? Of becoming an also-ran where it's just a race to the bottom from a commission point of view, because you've really struggled to differentiate yourself in any way, shape, or form. And like I said, I get why so many agents fall into the trap to a degree, because we're all doing, majority are now doing sort of things like professional photography, Premier, realestate.com ad, social media, or they'll say, look, we do social media, which makes me laugh. Because just by saying we do social media should show people that you really don't. So how can, when everybody's doing the same thing, I went through this phase as well. When everybody's doing the same thing, how can we differentiate ourselves as individuals? The easy answer is to say results and whatnot, right? If you've got good results and all that sort of stuff, that's the best way to differentiate yourself. And that's generally the thing that gets said by a lot of trainers and coaches and so on and so forth. And it's quite an easy answer to the question. But ultimately, the vast majority of people that do struggle with this are the ones that haven't got those results to show. to people. They haven't got the track record. We've got the proven track record. Yeah, good for you. Like, it's a more interesting question than what people give it credit for, and because a lot of people can't answer it properly in a way that people can take and actually utilize effectively without doing like a one-on-one thing, right? Well, the retort that I want to pose to everybody, so I want to return serve with another question, okay? And the question that I want to ask all of you people that are struggling with this sort of thing is your presentation a monologue or a dialogue? Is your presentation a monologue or a dialogue? Now, the difference between those two things, obviously, is in a monologue, basically, a monologue of a listing presentation, you are talking at them. You are going through the things that you need to go through in order to hopefully cover everything that they need to know, or that you feel that they need to know. All right. So, and this is so common in so many sort of first year agents, second, third year agents, even, and even beyond that, to be honest. They will be taught how to do a listing presentation. And some people will do it in, like, they'll put their personality on it, which is good, and I really would encourage that. But the general premise of everything that they talk about is very, very samey, okay? Really, really similar. And I mean, the amount of agents that they'll try and get the vendor to stick to their agenda as opposed to the agent working to the vendor's agenda, okay? And it's something that is so common. It is so common. So when I'm asking about whether your presentation is a monologue or a dialogue, you really need to have a think about it. Play your last few appraisals back through your mind if you're having this issue, and ask yourself, how many times did you let them talk outside of price thereafter and what they thought of the price that you gave and the standard basic questions? How much did you let them talk? Really? And there's a very, very quick way, a very easy way that you can adjust your presentation without completely cocking it up, yet at the same time encourage your potential vendor to actually get involved with it, right? Because ultimately, the thing that you need to do as an agent is put yourself in a position with the vendor working against the market, so that it's you plus the vendor against the market, okay? So how do you do that in a quick way? I mean, look, if you have got these issues, then you really need to do some more role playing and whatnot. I know it's Captain Awkward and everything, but you've really got to get into a habit of role playing. As soon as I lost 2 listing presentations on the bounce, just 2, one can happen, but 2, then that's something that I personally felt that was something that I was doing. I would role play different ways of doing certain things and different strategies. And I would do an overhaul of my entire listing presentation because, fool me once, then fool me twice. It's that sort of analogy, right? So you've got to ask, right, here's the easiest way of getting a bit of a ball of momentum rolling with this. Before you go into each section of your appraisal, so whether it is, connecting with them about their futures and tuning into them before you broadcast and whatnot, or if it is the marketing section, the strategy section, whichever one it is, before each one, ask them the question, what is your understanding of marketing? What is your understanding of the timeline, the process? What is your understanding of price? Like, by just asking the one question at the start of every piece, you're asking a real nice open question that will allow them the stage to actually give you a bit of an idea as to, one, what their understanding is, but 2, actually talk to you. Because after that one question, you want to ask one more follow-up question, whatever it is, from whatever it is that they say. So if they say to you, oh, look, I know that, we'll go on realestate.com and we get some pictures taken. A really good follow-up question to that would be, how do you, if you've had a look at some properties, then how do you feel that that's worked out for those people? Or, get them to think about something, get them to give you an answer that it actually requires a degree of thought. The big thing in listing presentations is until you get towards the very, very end, okay, when you're looking to close the meeting with a closed question, every single question should be an open question that is open to them, to allow them to take the listing presentation down a path that makes them feel comfortable. And I've said this in previous live shows. I used to have all of my videos set up on YouTube that I'd send out as a pre-listing, in part of my pre-listing kit, going through general information so that it would give me more time to let them do the talking. Ultimately, gang, the more of a dialogue where it's back and forth, teamwork, you and them versus the marketplace, the more that you can get them feeling like they're a part of the team, the more likely they're going to feel like they've already started the process with you. It sounds so simple, right? But ultimately, I will all but guarantee that at least 75 to 80% of your competition will be doing the set, right, I'm going to talk about this now, then we'll talk about that now, then we'll talk about that now, then we'll talk about price, and then blah, 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 blah. That's it. If you can engage in a dialogue, and the thing you've got to be really careful about here is making sure that you don't completely exacerbate your time frame, because if you do that, then obviously you're going to be completely blowing your diary out of proportion and you're just going to lose track of your time management. And that is why I did those videos, so it gave me more time to allow them to talk. So make sure, gang, that you have some sort of a purpose with every single section, and that purpose has to be understanding what they know, understanding what they feel, understanding how they are thinking about certain things before you go spouting off your suggestions. Now, for those of you that really find that quite confronting, or you really feel that that would make you feel really, really uncomfortable, here's the big thing about that. That level of uncomfort is a huge, huge warning sign that you don't quite know all of the information as well as what you should. If you are an expert in the truest sense of the word, you should be completely comfortable with all of the knowledge that you should know when it comes to having someone entrust you with their biggest asset. You should know the pros and cons of all different strategies. You should know which strategy is going to be slightly more appropriate if they have to get things done by a certain time frame, or those sorts of things. If you feel that you can't open it up into a dialogue as opposed to a monologue because you feel you have to get all of the information out so that you don't miss anything, means you haven't learned it well enough. You need to be way more comfortable with the information in order for you to be able to apply it appropriately to every situation as it comes about. Really critical, that. So please go back through your last few listing presentations and ask yourself, have I done enough to help them to get engaged in the conversation? And I'm not talking about getting them to say how great life that everything is, and fluffing them and whatnot. Don't be doing that. And part of a good dialogue, a robust dialogue, is one that allows you to retort and actually say, look, you know what? I appreciate why you are suggesting that you would perhaps prefer a private sale over an auction. Because you will have asked why, right? So what do you think you would prefer to do in terms of the process? Oh, look, I really think private sale. Well, why is that? And they'll tell you. And they say, well, look, if you genuinely feel, so not if you've been directed to, but if you genuinely feel that an auction is a much better way to go, then if you've got complete control over your knowledge and the information that you need to have, then it should be a very logical conversation. It doesn't turn into an argument, a very logical dialogue that allows them the opportunity to see your expertise in action. And then from there, ask them how they feel about it once you have presented the information and the knowledge that they don't have, because they don't do this all the time, right? So have a think about it, gang. And you need to reflect on your listing presentations all the time. All the time. At the end of the day, gang, if you just go in with the same listing presentation, and there are so many agents that do this, so many, way more than is appropriate. If you go into a listing presentation and you've got the same process that you've done time and time again, and you haven't won at least one out of the last three, then you're doing something wrong. And you can't keep doing the same thing. You've got to look at your own standards, guys. I hated losing, which is why if I ever lost two, I was onto it and I was rehauling everything because I didn't want to lose. Didn't want to lose. And it was clearly something that I was doing. Not the vendor. It's not the vendor's fault. It's never the vendor's fault if they don't pick me. Even if my commission's a % higher than one of my competitors, which sometimes it was, right? Then I need to justify that extra percentage of value. If I can't, then it's my fault. Never, ever, ever, ever did I blame a vendor for me not getting their business. Ultimately, it's their property in which I am a guest. Okay? A lot of us need to just get over ourselves and actually learn everything. Stop being a one-trick pony and just going through your whole spiel every time. It's what Einstein says, right? Definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome. The best teams in sport learn and know how to adapt midway through a game. Some of the most talented musicians on the planet are the ones that can just go a cappella if they sing, or they can just go off on a tangent if they're playing an instrument, and they can just make something sound beautiful. Some of the best rappers, and I'm trying to cover all the bases here, some of the best rappers in the world are the ones that can freestyle like that on the spot. The best auctioneers are the ones that can prove their worth when the chips are down, not when it's an easy ride. Okay? So please, gang, have a review of your listing presentation, because if you've had 5 listing presentations and you've lost at least 2 of them, then you are doing something clearly wrong and you need to get something sorted and fixed ASAP. And if you haven't done it yet, or if you've not done it and you decide not to do it and you just continue on your merry way, then 2 things. 1, you're lazy, okay? And 2, you definitely can't blame anyone but yourself for your not doing very well. The best people in this industry are always the ones that are evolving. They're always the ones that are improving on everything time and time and time again. You've got to set some standards though for yourself though, right? You've really got to set some standards for yourself. Whatever it is, whether it's an income thing and you're further away from it, or like if it's me, I just hated losing. So I needed to work out why. Okay. Jared, I've got a question. Would you say that younger people coming into the industry can be taught incorrectly then and struggle when they move out on their own because a lot stick to an agenda and end up being a robot and forget to listen? Mate, that's what I'm saying, right? There is something fundamentally wrong in the way in which new people, so not just younger people, but in the way in which new people are bled. Now, younger people are perhaps more likely to fall into this trap because of the fact that older people generally have a bit more life experience on their side. They've got a few battle scars on them, so they've got some general chit-chat that they can go through. But yeah, I think a lot of younger people are bled into the industry so badly because look, some of them, if you are one of these younger people and you've been lucky enough to do an apprenticeship under another agent, under a better or under a lead agent of some description, that's amazing, right? It's such a good opportunity because it means you get to have all of those learning experiences of winning and losing and chasing and all the rest of it, which is great, without having that burden of carrying, the salary sort of bonus part to it of your job, because that's on the lead agents just for shoulders, right? But there has to be something fundamentally wrong in the way it's being taught to young and new agents. There really must be. And I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that I can't remember a training session. I can't even actually remember many training sessions on listing presentations outside of my office, right? A lot of training sessions that I can remember were all about, well, the majority were about prospecting and, things like that, but nothing really strictly speaking about proper listing presentation training. So I don't know, there must be something wrong and flawed, because so many agents fall into this trap of becoming robotic. They're so worried about making sure that they get their presentation right that they don't pay attention to getting their connection right. And that's sort of why I've got my philosophy that I've got, right? It's EQ plus IQ in order to inspire genuine action in consumers and potential clients. You need to, the credibility thing, 100%. And I understand that, you really do want to get that right, because ultimately, if you don't prove your credibility, then they ain't going to trust you with their biggest asset anyway. But there's a half of that equation that you're just completely missing the point on. There's a massive section of it. So if you are young, if you are a younger agent in the space and you're just feeling like you're just not getting very far, then we need to have a conversation. It's like I was chatting a couple of years ago when I was chatting to Adam, who used to work with us, and he got sort of pushed out onto his own, not by, and this was at the office that we were at, so it wasn't while he was working with Joe. And he really sort of panicked because he was a young lad at the time. And he was sort of wondering what to do. And look, having structure is definitely something that you do need to have. Business meetings need structure of some point, of some degree, right? You can't, there is not one business meeting in the world that shouldn't have some sort of an agenda. But at the same time, you got to use your agenda as a skeleton from which you flesh out the actual presentation. You don't use it as your presentation, right? Which is what so many agents do. I did a role play with an agent that I've never worked with. I've just known him from around the traps, and I went and did a bit of a role play with him and got him to go through his stuff with me. And he's blatantly been taught like a bit of a robot, and he just didn't bring his personality out at all. And the second that I just went like that, with a curly question, he was stuffed. He was absolutely stuffed. So again, this is what I'm saying. Right? If you're a younger agent and you need to break, you need to, and the thing is, I'm not trying to tell you to go against your agency protocol, right? I'm not telling you to go against what your boss is saying for you to do. At the end of the day, your boss is wanting you to get business, right? And there might be certain things. So, for example, if you are an auction-focused agency or whatever the case may be, I understand that, they want a degree of control and yada, yada, yada. But at the same time, you've got to be yourself. You have to be yourself. And the only way you're going to do that is by asking questions and then backing your own ability and your knowledge to be able to retort appropriately for that situation. Okay? Got to be. You've got to put effort in. You'll put more effort into your knowledge and your awareness than what is taught at an induction program. Okay? Than what is taught at a head office for a couple of hours or on a webinar for an hour and a half or whatever. You got to practice your game. You got to focus on your craft. Like it's the same with auctioneering, right? Like I've had 3 practice sessions so far this week. If you're serious about the job game, you got to put in the hours, you got to put in the effort, you got to put in the energy and work at it. Yeah? Work on your knowledge, work on your understanding. Ask questions of people that have been in the game for longer and all those sorts of things, right? Because if you just keep providing monologues to these people, you ain't going to be inspiring anyone. There is going to be no inspiration coming out of that meeting at all. And all you will have left is that commission. How much of it do you want to keep? Because for me, like I set myself a standard and I wasn't prepared to go under it because I knew the value that I could bring. And ultimately, if they went somewhere else, it's because I didn't show that value. Okay? But I'll tell you now, you lose more than a cup. If you set your standard right, I ain't going to go below, I don't know. See, mine was 2.5, right? So, Brian, just a couple of years ago, but mine was about 2.5. And I said, right, I ain't going below that. I'm not going below that. And if I didn't, and I lost a couple, it meant that I needed to show more value. And I just kept working on it until I proved that I was showing enough value to get the commission that I was looking for, that justified my time. It was a hell of a lot easier for me as soon as Eliza came along. I took my time for granted until Eliza came along, my first kid. And then all of a sudden, time became way more precious, right? It just does. So I was like, well, shit, if I'm going to be away from my loved ones, my kid, my wife, my dog, my cat, my family, then it needs to be justified in terms of the fees that I'm asking for. It needs to be justified. Otherwise, why would I'd rather go stay at home with my kids. It's something, ironically, that until quite recently, I've really sort of lost on myself. As I've got into this B2B space with you lovely people, it's something that I've sort of lost on myself, is that sort of belief in terms of worth, in terms of value. But I'm hoping that you guys can sort of learn from this as I'm sort of relearning this for myself in a different space. Put a value on your own abilities. And if you don't get it, then either work harder to improve the value that you bring, or drop your commission. That's the easier way to go about it, but it's a very short-term economics positive and long-term legacy negative. But it all starts by just ask the question at the start of each section. What is your understanding of this? What is your understanding of internet marketing? What is your understanding of social media marketing? All right. What is your understanding of commission? What is your understanding of price? How do you think these things have come about? Well, there's that sale over here. Ultimately, gang, it's me and you versus the marketplace. The market will work on a logical figure and then try and be as pessimistic as possible, because you can't blame buyers for wanting to pay as little as they can, as they can get away with. Conversely, you're going to want as much as you want, and that gap is where I come in. My job to try and bridge it as best as possible, working with you against the market. All right, gang? So please start working harder on yourselves, working on your craft, the craft of being an agent, the craft of listing presentations. It's all a craft. Harder you work, stronger you become. Not rocket science, gang. And it doesn't matter how old, young, big, small, it doesn't matter what area you're in, makes no difference. No difference whatsoever. I don't care if you're an 18-year-old, just come straight out of Chisholm and thrown into the deep end, which is pretty frightening, right? You can do it. You can really do it. And another thing that I've heard from lots of trainers is like, if you're younger, then you've got the energy, right? You've got the focus, you've got the drive, you've got the this, you've got that, and it's all just fluff, man. Ultimately, if you know what you're doing, which is all about education and learning, right? Experience helps, 100% it does. But I'm telling you now, experience can be like an anchor around people's neck as well. It can be a facade, an ego sort of stroker because they've got the experience. How many times do I hear that? We've got the experience. We've got the proven track record. If I was a vendor, right, I'd be like, I couldn't give a shit whether you've got a proven track record. All I care about is my house. That's all I want to hear from you is stuff about my house. Yeah. If people did homework on me, like back in the day, they would see that I'd have the proven track record. I never said it. Because ultimately, and I do this with auctions even now, you're only as good as your next auction. You're only as good as your next listing presentation. The last one is done. It's out of the way. You can't change it. You can't fix it. You can't alter it. It's done. It's dusted. If I've been successful, great, but it's in the past. What am I going to do? Sit and like stroke my own ego, and whilst at the same, and then while I'm doing that, completely miss a couple of opportunities that have come through? No. Likewise, am I going to dwell and burden myself and riddle myself with guilt because I completely bore something? No. Am I going to learn from it? Yes. But I ain't going to dwell on it. All right. Anyway, Jared, follow up. Had a little conversation with a rather arrogant agent the other day that often uses having a family against agents in a presentation. Thoughts on agents going in this direction? Do you think it negatively affects them or plants doubt in the owner's mind for the agent that has a young family? I had a conversation with a rather arrogant agent the other day that often uses having a family against agents in a presentation. Oh, so give me a thumbs up, mate, if I've got this right. So basically, he's saying that having a family is a negative thing, or because he hasn't got a family, it means he's going to be better. Is that what I'm sort of getting at? What I'm getting at there? Just give me a thumbs up or something, Jared, please. I'll tackle both. Look, at the end of the day, your life is your life. You can either look at things as a burden, or you can look at things as opportunities. It's not like I said, man, it's not rocket science. Like when I was, yeah, wonderful. Okay, so if that agent is saying that having a family is a negative thing because obviously, oh look, he's just had a kid and so he's going to be distracted and blah blah blah. If that's the sort of general gist that you're getting out there, I'd laugh. I would. I'd laugh. I'm laughing just thinking about it, to be honest. Oh, look. At the end of the day, I did, and this was by accident, right? A really good example as to why having kids can be a really, really good thing. It's neither here nor there, man. Kids are life. Kids are a part of life. Anyway. And they can be used. They allow you to be a lot more empathetic towards the situation of parents, right? Because you've been there, right? That's where an experience really does count. But a real good thing that I was forced to do by my wife, right? So when Eliza came along, and I was just working my ass off. I was working so many days, like 6-7 days a week, And when Felicity finished her maternity leave and she was about to go back to work, she said to me, right, Andy, you have to I'm making you have every other Wednesday off. I'm like, right? Because she goes, otherwise you'll never see a kid. I'm like, okay, fair enough. Okay, no problem at all. And that was a non-negotiable. So she goes, if you book an appointment in, then you're going to end up leaving your kid at home or taking it with you. Okay, I'm like, right. So I thought about that, and what that ended up making me do, and this was completely by accident, ended up working out extremely well, is I said to every potential vendor, I say, look, you can get hold of me, you can pretty much get hold of me 24/7. I'd encourage you to send me a text because, as I'm sure you're aware, I'll have a number of appointments that I'll be in, and I don't want to play phone tag with you because that's just annoying for everybody. More often than not, I'll be able to get back to you within the hour. The only time that it will take me a little while longer to get back to you is every other Wednesday. And they just sit back and be like, okay, well, why is that? And I said, because that's my daddy daughter day. That's the day that I commit to my daughter, my little girl. And as I'm sure you can appreciate, she's more important than anything else on this planet. Pretty much every vendor, and I wouldn't be doing this to get to this point, every vendor would end up calling me and apologizing just in case I'm with my kid. But it would endear me to them because I was being transparent. I only said it because I didn't want to let them down. But the reaction that I got from that was the one, I had my priorities right. 2, I was much more in control of my time. 3, they could see openly that I was completely upfront about how this was going to go down, how this was going to work between myself and them when it came to going on the market. They knew exactly what I was about. Like, there was just so many times that I won a listing just because I was upfront about the fact that I was going to have every other Wednesday as a priority to spend it with my kid. And I'm not even going to apologize for it. I don't know whether it's just because I was really comfortable in my own skin from a listing point of view by that point or what. I don't know. But ultimately, the reason why I laugh about that, Jared, is the fact that what that does is show a tremendous insecurity in that agent that you're talking about. If any agent feels the need to talk about any of their competitors in that sort of way, it shows a tremendous inadequacy and a real lack of faith in their own ability and their own personality to get the job done on their own merit. Again, this is something else that I did that wouldn't be more friends than not. I never talked about any other agents. I'd say to them, they'd ask me for opinions and say, look, I want you to make your own opinion for yourself. I don't feel I need to talk about any other agents. Ultimately, the only people I really want to talk about is you. I don't feel that talking about other agents is going to be helpful in any way, shape, or form, because I don't want to. Ultimately, I just want the conversation to be about you and your properties and your priorities. It's got nothing to do with any other agents or whatever. It's all about you. I just never felt the need to talk about other agents. And if any vendors really sort of hammered me for it, it was generally after they'd sign on the dotted line, right? And then they'd be like, right, so what do you really think about him? I'd be like, look, man, at the end of the day, like, they do what they do, I do what I do. All I'd rather focus on is my game, my energy, my concentration, my efforts, my professionalism to ensure that we get as good an outcome as possible. At the end of the day, man, bollocks to them. Let them do that. Let them do that. It just shows a massive, massive weakness in their game. Huge flaw in their game. And if anyone does come back at you and say that, then you say, well, no, well, what have you got to work for? I've got a kid. You don't think that that's going to drive me to work harder than you? Did me. But don't get sucked into it, man. At the end of the day, they're just going to let them do what they do. You focus on your game, your lane. All right? Focus on your lane. You don't need to focus on anybody else. Because, the minute and that was something, the minute that I stopped worrying about anybody else was the minute I started doing all right. And again, I'm learning this all over again. Now I'm coming into this coaching space, because there's some big names in coaching. There's loads of coaches. Real estate space is absolutely chock-a-block ram full of coaches. And all of a sudden, I'm a small fish again. Right? So, I've fallen into the trap. I'm not going to lie. I've fallen into the trap about a month and a half ago. Fell into the trap of just focusing way too hard on what other people were doing. Lost track of what I was doing. Now, it's game on. Game on. So I'm just focused on myself. Okay? All right, then, man. Jared, good. No worries, my friend. I will see you on Monday, buddy. Right then, friends, I'm going to let you guys go and enjoy the rest of your night. If you are elsewhere in the world, have a wonderful Wednesday. Hope you have a great day. I hope the weather's okay. Gang, please focus on yourselves, but open up that dialogue. I know we digressed from the original point, but it was all to do with the same thing. Dialogue. It's everything. And if you're really struggling, if you're really uncomfortable going into dialogues with people, it means that you've got to focus on your craft, your skill set, your knowledge base. All right? You've really got to work hard on that. Experience does count, but you can accelerate your level of success, especially if you're a young agent, just because you haven't got the experience as such, doesn't mean to say that you can't accelerate your success. Okay? You just got to ask a lot more questions from a lot more people that are in the space. You got to put effort in. It's only going to be effort that's going to get you a couple of extra rungs up on the ladder. All right? Okay, gang. I will see you tomorrow night, 9 o'clock, Australian Eastern Standard Time. If you've got any questions, feel free to send me a DM. Shoot me a text message on 0451 085 998. But for now, gang, stay safe, stay healthy. Most importantly, though, as always, stay happy. Take care, gang.